welcome to yet another episode of In Touch with Lucky. As always, I always have special guests. All my guests are special. But today we're talking relationships, we're talking finances, we're talking assets. And really, the best person to have this discussion with, you're probably wondering relationships and finances. What just hang in there, we'll get to that. It will make sense in a minute. So my guest today is Caroline Maradzika. Welcome, Caroline.
Thank you. Thank you. Happy to be here.
Yes, yes. So Caroline is a lawyer. So relationships and finances, it's all well and good when things are going well. Mm-hmm. But as we all know, relationships do break down. So what then happens to the finances, to the assets that have been acquired maybe before the relationship, during? So that's what we're going to be talking about today. So I guess I'll start with probably, maybe you can tell us about your background.
Okay. Well, I studied at Murdoch. It's been a long time, so please don't ask me when I graduated. I don't remember anything at the best of times.
Right.
But when I finished university, I actually did not want to do family law at all. I wanted to be a commercial lawyer.
Right.
However, at the time, I was working in the magistrate's court, and I watched criminal lawyers, family lawyers come before the court, how they would speak, the stories they would speak about, and I found myself really drawn in. And it just so happened that the first job I then got from that point on, because back those days, there were no African lawyers, not many. I think
not many.
Right. 2 or 3 in all of Western Australia. So there were not many African lawyers, there were not many African law graduates, let alone, I think our visibility was just
next to none.
Yes. Next to none.
Yes.
But the firm that I first got with was actually owned, 2 of the directors were African. And they gave me the leg up that I needed in the industry. They mentored me in both family and criminal law and immigration as well. Actually, I used to do immigration back then.
Yeah.
And so now I've been practicing law as a lawyer for 6 years. 4 years a paralegal.
Yeah.
6 years as a lawyer.
I see.
Yeah.
Oh, well done. I think, I just love your energy anyway. So, you are that kind of lawyer on one team. So family law, which is probably broad, but today we're going to be talking about just pretty much like protecting your assets.
Yes, that's a big one.
Yes. I guess before we delve in, I just want to put it out there that, we've established credibility. She's a lawyer, but just bear in mind that all the advice given is general only. Individual circumstances might vary. So, it's just general. If you want more information, maybe you can get in touch with Caroline or speak to your lawyer. So don't say, oh, Caroline said this, she did, but it's general because she doesn't know your individual circumstances.
Yes.
And also, I really have to say this because I'm finding that there seems to be a misconception that that it's only for women. I really want to let the men just hang in there. Please don't tune out. There's something for you as well.
Yes.
So I guess. Oh, you wanted to say something?
Yes. I just wanted to elaborate on that point. The law applies equally to men and to women. So do stay tuned.
Yes.
Because you need to know what your pitfalls are, or what they may be, whether you're male or female.
Right.
Yes.
Right. Okay, so thank you for that. So I guess when we're saying assets, for me, I'm thinking, maybe houses that have been acquired, money, maybe cash in the bank, your savings. I think it will go as far as superannuation, isn't it?
Yes, it does.
Right.
It does.
Right. So maybe can we talk about the de facto relationship first?
Okay.
I'm 40. I meet a man. I've acquired a little bit of whatever I've acquired
along the way,
as you do. How do I protect myself look, like I said in the beginning, it's all nice and good when you've got butterflies. He doesn't want anything that you've got. How do I then protect myself? Yes, how do I protect myself?
So let's start with the actual definition of a de facto relationship, because that's quite contentious with most people. So most people will know, or some people may know, we've got Centrelink, which says a de facto relationship or a relationship becomes de facto when you start living together and you've lived together for 6 months.
So only 6 months.
That's what Centrelink says.
Right.
Family law traditionally holds it to say it needs to be 2 years. Right?
Right.
But more often than not, it's not just about how long it is. Because in actual fact, I'd say as much as the law says a time, a period of time, it actually matters less and less every day, because we have to consider so many other aspects of a relationship when deciding what a de facto relationship is.
Okay.
So we talk about living together. We talk about the entanglement of your finances. And this is not saying joint account.
100%.
And this is because if you and your partner went and sat with a commercial lawyer, they'll tell you about trusts, they'll tell you about this, that, and the third, all these commercial mechanisms to protect your assets. Right?
Together.
Whether together or separately.
Right.
They'll tell you, they'll come up with answers.
Sure.
But as a family lawyer, I'll sit there and I'll laugh. Because the day you want to go and enforce anything a commercial lawyer has done that isn't a tool of a family lawyer, a court will go, well, okay, this is great, you've got a contract, but it means nothing because you guys were in a relationship. Go see the family lawyers. And that's because family law is actually the most powerful law in the country. We can change so much in family law. We can change a super. We can reverse bankruptcy. So to all my commercial lawyer friends,
just putting it out there. Wow.
Yeah. So that's why we need to know. Right. Because we can prepare all kinds of documents, all kinds of instruments to protect people. Sure. But we need to know whether you are protected under the right law.
Right. Okay. So then how do I then prove that social aspect of it? I'm getting affidavits from friends.
So affidavits from friends, photos. Yes. Okay. It's just there's that sort of stuff.
Facebook posts, a lot of
Facebook posts.
In a relationship with
complicated. All of that. Believe it or not, we say it as a joke now, but I have relied on Facebook posts in court to say a relationship exists.
It's legit.
It happens. It's legitimate.
Right. All right. Yeah. So we've established that a de facto is,
So the reason why that definition is important is because if we're talking about protecting you before, of which we want to protect you before.
Yes.
Because once you meet the definition, and if you've got no protection, and things fall apart, there's consequences for that. There's a different whole scenario for that. So we want to know what a de facto relationship is so that we can protect ourselves before it happens.
Yes.
Okay.
Before you needing a criminal lawyer.
Before you need a criminal lawyer, because now you realize you've left yourself too vulnerable. You could come to me for that too. You could come to me for that too, but we don't want that. So, if we are to avoid that, I think the perfect time. Mind you, we can do it at any time.
Right.
We can do it before.
Okay.
We can do it during.
Yeah.
We can do it after.
Right.
So the same tool that I'm going to talk about, we can do it at any time of a relationship.
Oh, gotcha.
However, the discussions are different at those stages, aren't they?
Of course.
Right?
Of course.
So the best time for me to have those discussions are before.
So
before we decide, as we're discussing moving in.
Yes. Yes.
Because those conversations have to happen.
Yes, and I find a lot of people are a bit funny. They feel some type of way about talking about those things, thinking, no, you should be able to talk about it.
You should be.
And it doesn't mean that, if a guy is asking if is wanting to have that conversation with me, it's got nothing to do with nothing to do with the love that we have with each other.
Absolutely.
It's not questioning my love for him.
No, it's not. It's not. And people should not be scared because they feel like their authenticity in their relationship is being questioned. Not at all. In actual fact, I find that perhaps, how can I put it? The way the tool works is that the best way to do it is to have that conversation between yourselves, that full disclosure conversation. Hey, Okay, cool. We've decided we're moving in together.
Yeah.
I have this, that, and the third. And realistically speaking, if this didn't work out,
yeah,
I would like to make sure that I'm walking away with what I came in with.
Sure.
Or I would like to walk in with this. We can then decide what happens to the things we collect together.
During.
How do you feel about that?
Right.
And I said that the best way to go about it is to have a conversation amongst yourselves and then see a lawyer.
Right.
Because then at least, A, you're coming with already a decision, an agreement, number one. Number two, in terms of the process itself, it's much quicker and possibly a little bit cheaper.
Right.
Depending on the law firm you choose.
Yes, because you two are the ones who know the final details of what you've got.
And we will have to. We will. The process itself requires that me as a lawyer also know.
Oh, I see.
Okay. But in terms of what we have to do as lawyers, it cuts out a lot of. Because for people who can't have that conversation, we start that conversation for you.
Yeah.
But imagine your boyfriend, who you see every day, is receiving a letter with Caroline's signature at the bottom.
Oh.
The natural reaction is going to be twofold. There's going to be that defensiveness because, as much as I can write nice letters, kind letters,
it's still what it is.
They're not going to be that nice or that kind. It's a lawyer's letter.
Exactly.
It's disarming.
It's
a bit of a shock to the system sometimes.
Yeah.
But also, what kind of effect is that going to have on your relationship? Because, as much as we are family lawyers, we're not there to advise you in your personal lives. But common sense would beg to say, if your partner is receiving a letter from a lawyer that they're not expecting,
not a good look.
You may have a lot more problems in your relationship than you think.
100%.
Yeah. So, but look, for some situations, we do start that conversation and say, hey, so this is what we understand of your relationship. This is what our client has. This is our understanding of what you have from what our client says. We want to talk about this, but to start this conversation, please provide us all your financial documents. So there's this process called disclosure that we have to do. So that's the starting point. The starting point is either people come to us having had discussions and having reached agreements, or we initiate the discussion. But the first thing that is required is this exchange of disclosure. So disclosure being documents that, I suppose, evidence your financial position.
Sure.
So your bank account, your super, your titles, your land titles, car registration, the value of your car, all of that sort of jazz we wanted from you. And I will get to the end as to why it's important that I also know as a lawyer. Okay? Because essentially what we're trying to do here is we're trying to prepare the agreement in accordance with the Family Law Act or the Family Court Act. Okay? And if you were here in WA, it would be Family Court Act. The reason being that WA never gave its powers to the court.
Right.
So we still have our own, we're the only state with its own special family court. But for people who are married, for example, if you want to do it before you're married, immediately before you're married, it will be Family Law Act.
Right.
Yes. So, I mean, those are the technicalities that you guys don't need to worry about. That's what you get a lawyer for.
Sure.
What it is an agreement. It's a written agreement. Right? So remember what I said before about knowing the right lawyer to go to? Because any lawyer can write a contract. But the contract needs to meet, if it's a relationship, the contract needs to meet certain criteria that is determined by the legislation. Okay? And that is why you need to go see a lawyer. And that is why I need to know what it is you've got. I need to do my due diligence because one of the requirements, for example, for when we draft this document is that not only do you need to sign it, witnessed by a justice of peace or another lawyer, but I also need to sign it as a lawyer to say that I have dispensed legal advice in preparing it for you. The other person also needs to be represented so that another lawyer can say, I also advised him and this is really what he's agreeing to.
Right.
So for the length of your relationship, me as a lawyer, I sit there and I sweat. Because up until that document has to come into play,
yes,
I am responsible.
Right.
Okay. It hangs on my head in terms of our obligations.
Yes.
So we draft them, but they hold us Yeah, they hold us hostage.
They do.
They do. So what it is an agreement. The agreement can be whatever it is you want. Okay. So that's why I said sometimes it is good for you guys to, more times than not, it is good for you guys to talk about it beforehand,
yes,
and then come to see it more. What's important though, or to make sure that this document is absolutely intact, because I know sometimes some people will have heard it's essentially a prenup, if you like.
I was just going to get to that. Yes. So, do we call them prenups in
No,
Australia?
in Australia they don't exist as prenups.
Yeah.
They're called binding financial agreements.
Right, yes.
So the binding nature of it is this independent legal advice and their compliance with the Family Court or Law Act. Okay? That compliance there is what makes it binding. Binding meaning enforceable.
Yes.
Okay? Which court enforces it? Not all the other courts. The family court enforces it. And that's why we need to know the nature of the relationship in order to prepare it correctly. Because when commercial lawyers are preparing it, they could care less.
That's
on the family court.
Yes, gotcha, yeah.
So, and then if you have that agreement, anyone can sit here. You could sit here. Me and you, if we sit here and we drafted a paper, a document, and said you will walk out of here with this, and I will walk away with this, we sign it. I can go to the magistrate's court and enforce that. It's a contract. Because me and you don't have that personal relationship.
Yes.
But if you and your partner do that and you try to go to the magistrate's court, they'll say,
yeah,
we don't have power here.
Yes.
Go over there.
Family.
Yeah. Exactly. So that's why it matters. But what it is essentially, I suppose if we're going to call it anything, I know my fellow family lawyers will shaking in their boots as I say this, it is essentially kind of like a prenup.
Yes.
It is the Australian version of a prenup. But many people will have heard the general consensus in public that they are not particularly powerful here in Australia. But that's where we then come to how do you keep it valid?
Right.
And part of that, again, comes back to the binding nature of it.
So when people say they're not powerful, does it mean that there's a situation whereby people have come together, agreed what they've agreed at home, then they go see a lawyer, put something in place, and then it was disregarded?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yes. Then it was disregarded. And it can be disregarded. So this document, think of it as a living document. Okay? It's a living document. So when I draft this, I will ask you what's going on with you.
Yes.
Okay?
At the time.
And I want to know, and then I have to say, no one knows you as well as your family lawyer does. At least that's the way it should be. If you find yourself lying to a family lawyer, what are you paying for? You do not need to lie to your family lawyer. You need to be absolutely 110% honest with your family lawyer. The reason being, especially for preparing this kind of a document, we can't foresee what you don't tell us.
Sure.
Okay? And I said this is a living document, right? So we have to try and include as much as what we can foresee and account for it in this document in order for it to be as valid for as long as possible.
Ah, I see.
Okay? So if I draft this document, and when I draft it, you've got one son, your son, and you've got your business, and your business at this point in time is worth maybe $1 million.
Yeah.
He comes along, all he's got is his car, or he too might have a business, and his business is worth $2 million, right? Let's imagine we're now at year 6 of our relationship. You now have 3 kids.
Yes.
2 are his.
Yes.
1 is yours, right? And his $2 million business has dwindled down to nothing.
Yep.
Yours, though, is now worth 6, 7.
Sorry, that's just my body rejecting. No more kids. Sorry.
Let's imagine.
I'm sorry.
It's all right. Let's imagine that those are the situations, right? Things have changed in your life. I can only foresee so much in this document. If I haven't accounted for these huge changes, when you then break up, if he then goes, no, I want half or whatever it is he wants, and he takes you to court, the court's going to go, okay, let's look at the document. Who signed this? Oh, Miss Maradzika. That short one, she likes to argue. They look at it, they go, okay, she was very careful. She did what she had to do, but they never included all of this other stuff that's now happening.
So you're like forecasting.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But then I have to be careful about how I forecast the future, because I can't be too specific, because then if you stray any little tiny bit, it also triggers it. invalid.
Yes.
So we have to forecast the future in a way that's quite broad, but not too specific.
Right.
So I can forecast, the safe bet for most people is to forecast the big things, the big ticket items that we can definitely see, and still leave it quite generic. Because if we then become too fussy and too particular, any little tiny, in fact, the more specific it is, any little tiny movement out can invalidate it.
Correct.
So we have to forecast it within reason.
Wow. That is
within
a hard
reason.
job. Within reason, yes. I mean, there are things like, a home. Granted, it's gonna, gain.
Well, that's the thing is that's
a given.
That's a given.
Yeah.
But I'll give you an example of some of the things that people really sort of want to include in there, and I find that it's very different based off of where people sit financially, or where they are, where they see themselves going. Okay. Now, people sometimes think these binding financial agreements are for people with big bank, people with the money.
And that's a very huge misconception.
It's a very huge misconception.
Yes.
Your everyday
I don't have anything, so why bother?
I may have $0 in my name.
That's
today,
right.
But I know where I'm going.
Exactly.
So I might want to protect where I'm going.
Yeah.
Versus where I am.
I have nothing at the moment, but I'm going somewhere.
So you can have it.
Yes.
Even if you got 0, I'll show you my statement here. We'll go 0, but I know that in 5 years, I'm gonna be stepped up. So if that's the case, I'll go see my lawyer and I'll get something drafted for what that's going to look like. Right? Yeah. But just an ordinary bloke or an ordinary woman, you own a house, you have a car, you have a couple of grand in the bank, or even a couple of hundred in the bank. For my Zimbabwean men, maybe you work fly in, fly out. So you work for Rio. Rio gives you shares as bonuses, right? That's an asset that you need to account for, and that's a very much good asset, by the way. Yeah. So those are things that you need to account for, and you might want to account for. Yes. Because it pays to account for these things. Yes. Yes. So don't think that you have to have anything extraordinary to protect in order to actually see a family lawyer. No. Even just the bit that you have, you can protect that.
That's good. So we come because I've got this much assets and he's got this much assets. So then part of that process is then saying that whatever we then acquire during the relationship, so then we're going halves, are we? Understand?
It's up to you.
I see.
It's a creature of your making.
Yes. Yeah.
No, I like it's a creature of your making.
Yes.
So here's where it gets really funny for me sometimes. And I love one of the things I enjoy about my job is just finding out what different people from different walks of life think about.
Right.
Okay. I will have some ethnic groups, maybe like in the Middle East, and they've got a culture that's very similar to ours, where you know how we have to, Rora happens and that sort of thing. And they have a similar thing. I think they call it mer or something like that. Guys,
don't quote her.
Don't quote me, but it's called something like that. Where it's the same process, but it's paid to the wife. But it's a debt, because you're meant to keep a debt, because if you pay it off, the marriage might end. So but when you separate, you're supposed to pay. You're supposed to pay it to the wife. You're supposed to finish the payment because now you're separating. You're breaking the promise. Right? Some people include that. Some people include that in an actual document. Wow. Okay. Wow. Some people include that. Yep. So what do we have? We've got Gupuro.
Yes, Gupuro. Yes.
So you might want to include that if that was your thing. If that was your thing.
Yes.
If that's what you're interested in.
Yes. So be as petty as you want to be.
That's the time to talk about it, because when you're separating, it's not going to be an easy conversation.
Oh, you're going to be blocking each other.
Exactly. So some people include things like that, right? Some people, I find a lot of my high net worth clients, it's fascinating to me. People think very differently. My high net worth clients will always think of, obviously beyond the obvious, like their businesses and that sort of thing. they will think of kids.
Yeah.
They'll go, okay, if we break up with one child, this is what you will get. If we break up with 2 children, this is what you will get. If we break up with 3, this is what you will get. That's it. Some people will even go right down to the gender of the child.
Wow. Interesting you say that. I saw something on Janet Jackson. I don't know how far true it is. I saw it on social media.
Very true.
Her husband, or then they divorced now, said that if you have a son in a certain amount of time with the, you get this much. And then conveniently, from the way I read the post, is at that 2-year mark, she had a son.
And then she immediately filed for divorce.
Yeah.
It happens like that. Quite a lot, actually. But that's why these documents exist. And that's because what could happen in the absence of such a document is completely different. So this document leaves it in your control.
Yes.
But what could happen if we were to start taking each other to court? Well,
yes,
that's a different book.
Yes, because pardon me. You're right in the sense that it's your own making. You're really putting in there what you want. Because then I think if you're then doing it at the end, you're leaving it in the hands of the court. It can be unfair. At law, it might be fair. But for us,
the process when we're at the end, if we do go to court, the things that I have to consider if we were to go to court are sort of the same things that I have to advise you about when I'm drafting this document. So I would be telling you, if you broke up today and you went to court, this is what you'll be entitled to. It's a process that's very clear. So remember how I said to you that males and females are the same?
I was just about to say,
it comes back to
the law favors.
No.
That's
it's exactly the same. That's the word out, but it's because people don't know what the law says.
Right.
So people live their lives not knowing that, maybe by not doing the dishes, I'm actually shooting myself in the foot. Because that really is what it is. That's literally what it comes down to. Wow. By not waking up at 2 a.m. when baby is crying, I'm shooting myself in the foot. You make these decisions along the way in life thinking it's just about the money. It's not. The family, but that's a different conversation.
Yeah, of course.
Could be all day.
Wow, yes, absolutely.
But with binding financial agreements, definitely. So some people have to consider those things. Some people consider that. Some people, different cultures value different things. Sometimes I'll get people from cultures where, like you said, like Janet Jackson's situation, where they value the male child. I'm not saying that I'm in agreement with it, but again, it's not my place to advise you about your personal preferences.
Correct.
I can only advise you about the law. Sure, I can sit there and be like,
yeah.
But I have to do what you tell me to do.
Absolutely.
So if it is that you want, if the first child is a male son, there's a little bonus for it or whatever it is. That's you guys, and if that's what you guys are agreeing on, that's what we put in the document. And I find different people, different networks value things. What they hold precious is very different.
Right.
Very, very different. So on the concept of 50-50, it doesn't have to be 50-50 if you don't want it to be 50-50.
Whatever it is that you agree on.
Whatever it is that you agree on. In fact, the same document that we use to protect you before you get into a relationship, when we do it at the end of a relationship, more time than not, we do it to agree or to come to an agreement that actually isn't quite what the court would agree to. Even if you're in agreement. If you will just indulge me, just so that please. When people separate, they've got 2 options, right? One is to go to court straight off the bat, but then there's rules about that too. Or to negotiate an arrangement, which they can then write into what are called consent orders. The court then we apply to the court for those consent orders to be made court orders. Right. The court, by looking at this agreement, go through the same process. So it's some people say it's a 4-step process. Some people say it's 6 steps. It's the same steps. So it starts off with disclosure. We have to consider your financial contributions. So who was paying for what in the relationship, who was doing what for work and that sort of thing. You have to consider your non-financial contributions. So who was cooking, who was cleaning. So you see, when we're talking about considering men saying that it favors women,
Yes.
it's usually this point where they fall.
Yeah.
Right? Because Mrs. goes to work just as much as you. Her entire pay is going here. You earn 120K,
Yes.
but only about 80K is going to the family. The other 20K are going to the bottle with the boys.
Yes.
But she's at home. She's cooking. She's cleaning. She's
Correct.
doing the drop-offs.
Oh,
She's
yeah.
doing all of that.
Yes.
And then you're not helping on that point.
Yeah.
So again, that already skews things. So the more you know men, the better. Help out around the house. It goes far. It's not a small consideration. It is literally
do the dishes
an
once in a
equal
while.
component. It is literally an equal component to the financial contributions. The reason why it was ever included in there was because of a stay-at-home mom.
Yes.
Right? And because the law used to look at just the financial contributions.
Yeah.
So what does it mean that this woman has got
exactly
nothing and gets nothing out of her?
And yet she was home raising the kids. Yes.
She was packing your lunch.
Packing your lunch.
So would you have been okay to grind at work if you didn't have lunch?
Probably not. Probably not. Yeah.
But that's really what it is. And we ask those questions as family ones, you know.
Yes.
We ask, oh, okay, so what about the outdoor? Oh yeah, he would mow the lawn, he would do the gutters. Okay, great. So we can't say he didn't do anything. We give him whatever. So we have to consider it. We have to consider all of those things. In fact, we consider your financial contributions out of 100. We work with percentages.
Yes.
Out of 100, we consider your non-financial contributions out of 100% as well.
So you'd have a situation whereby maybe, let's say the wife is a stay-at-home mom, stay-at-home wife. So financial contributions might be 0, and then for the husband it's going to be 100. And then on the household contributions, he's going to have 0, and you have 100. I see.
Right. And then we have to look at future needs. Right. So that's why I said 4-step. Some people break it up a little bit more. They can be broken down a lot more.
Yeah.
Future needs. It's not what you think of future needs. It's what the law says are future needs.
What
age. Because who's closer to retirement? We need to account for that. Right.
Wow.
Qualifications. Who's more qualified than the other person?
Wow.
Who's more employable than the other person? Superannuation. Who's got greater financial resources than the other person? Because the person with less, we top them up a little bit.
Just maybe within your age range, please.
Right. We top them up a little bit. So the person with the less super, we top them up. But the biggest one, what are the kids going to live with? Because it's 5%, just about 5% more for each child. Right? So the kids are going with mom, yeah? The kids are going to live with mom.
Yeah.
You've got 3, 5, 10, 15.
15.
Especially the younger they are, the more maximized that 5% is. If we've got a 17-year-old, of course, it doesn't make sense for me
Just
to give them 5%. You know?
Yes.
So imagine, maybe you did things equally, 50-50, but the kids are going to mom, right? Mom is going to be primary carer. 5, 10, 15. And you might turn around and say, this is for my guys, you might turn around and say, what about child support? I'm paying 20K a year for child support. Irrelevant to the whole
conversation.
So we're dealing with property, we're not dealing with parenting.
Wow.
So do you see how that process
yes
really takes it out of your control?
Which is, sorry to cut you off, which is what you just explained now. Let's say the kids are going with mom. So obviously she's whatever her share is, and then you add the 5% per child. I think this is why that notion out there that, the law protects women and all that. I think that's kind of where it comes from. Because naturally kids then tend to go to mom.
And that's the thing. And that's the thing. And when we then look at parenting on the side, right? Parenting says kids go, 9 to 9, there's a lot of considerations. But primary attachment is one of the biggest things that we consider. So if the kids are primarily attached to mom because they spend 80% of the time with mom, it makes sense. Right?
Yeah.
So again, the law applies equally to both. If maybe 3 days out of 4 you're taking bubs to school and doing the drop-off, so 2 days a week you're relieving mom of that responsibility. Or when you get home, let's say you can't do that. When you get home, it's your responsibility. You're the one cooking for the kids. You're the one taking them to the shower. Okay, guys, let's get ready, bed. Mom doesn't have to do anything. She kicks up her feet. Then maybe the kids could be equally attached to you both. Then maybe there would be no need to have, maybe it would be a week about arrangement. Maybe half and half. And if it was half and half, guess what? There's no adjustment.
Yes.
say the law favors women, it's just because they just don't know where they've gone wrong along the way. Because we live in a society where we're trying to promote equality, and then you expect the law to be blind to equality.
Right, right. Oh, I like that. I like that. Yes, yes. Because we're saying, men should do more around the house because, they should do more around the house. And then when it then comes to the law, we don't want the law to take that.
It actually doesn't. It doesn't lag behind. In fact, I think family law in Australia has been very quite advanced. For I think the changes to consider non-financial contributions the decades old. Several, yeah, from the beginning of time, just about. So those things are considered. Yeah, they're considered. So when men say the law favors women, it's not that the law favors women. The law really looks at your life and how you live your life. Yes, yes, that's what it does. Yep. Maybe people are gonna be keeping tabs and a notebook. Put the kids to bed. Sing a song for him. I mean, that's not a good way to live. That's not a good way to live. Because you're really planning your exit. But then if we talk about the binding financial agreement that you do before you enter your de facto relationship or your marriage, because you can do it at both times. Yeah. So you've got the document now. Mm-hmm. We've signed it off. Yes. Nobody realistically expects you to live going, hold on, let's look at our document. It's not. No. It's not realistic. No. But that's why I said it's a living document. Yes. And that's why I said specific, being too specific. Yes. Can be a problem. Because then you would need to look at the document. Well, yes. But we need to leave it quite broad because the reality of life is you are going to live your life. Yeah. You are going to invest in things together. Yeah. And those things that you invest together, you've already made a decision about how you're going to distribute them. So that can become quite natural how you go about them. Yeah. And if the things that pre-existed beforehand still exist, you've already decided what is going to happen about them. Yeah. So as long as nothing really changes in terms of nothing departs too far from what's covered in the document. Don't deviate too much here. You'll be fine. Yes. Yeah. It will be enforceable. Yeah. But if things deviate too far, go see your lawyer and revise the document if you intend to still be protected. Right, right. So what's the very good point you're making was I was talking to one of my friends. He was saying that how frequently should we be updating it? Some people will go as far as remember those high net worth clients that I spoke about. Yes, they will usually even have a clause about it in there to say we'll review this document, we'll review it every 5 years or every 7 years or every 2 years or whatever it is. Well, the way my business is going, I'm thinking every 6 months. Well, that's if you even want it to be, because we could say we could preface that. So again, the document can preface a lot. We can preface Lucky Way is exponentially growing, such that, at this point I would drop something about the growth of your business and how quickly it's happening. And it's prefaced in the document, which means that everybody's signing a document when we decide that Lucky is going to keep her business. It's not a secret. Right. It's not a secret. Exactly. We've put it in there that we both knew this was happening. Yes. Yes. And you agreed to it anyway. So now that Lucky's in 100 million. Yes. And you are missing out on it. Yeah. You can't turn around and say, "Oh, but I didn't know it wasn't going to be successful." Oh, so it's there. A. Yeah. Says it was growing exponentially. Right. She believed in it. Yeah. That's why she put it in. So talking about being specific, I guess you're not saying the company is going to be growing. It's not specific in the sense that you're not putting figures there. It's just general, but it's growing. Some people will put figures, and it depends on the context. So recently, I had a BFA that I had to do during a relationship, and the fascinating thing about this sort of thing is that sometimes during the relationship, you've got a house. The house is worth hundreds and hundreds of thousands. I've got other houses, yes, cool, but this one's the one that will do the security for my next investment, yeah? Sure. So then I've taken my investment, my partner say, okay, Caroline, you need to come up with $800,000 to invest in this business. It's going to grow, it's going to be good. Well, my house with my partner is worth 1.2. ANZ, get on the phone. Boom. Securities placed against the property. We both own. Right? want to be able to keep my business because my husband is a stay-at-home dad.
Yes.
So I'm the one pouring all the work into this. So this is really a fruit of my labor. So I want to be able to keep this if this ends. He's got no problem with it.
Oh, 100%.
But as a lawyer, I'm sitting there going, the business has become available because it's secured against a joint asset. So to say that she's got no contribution isn't fair.
Because if she hadn't contributed from the beginning, this business wouldn't have existed.
Well, not even that, just by virtue of the joint title.
Right. It's a security.
As a security.
Yeah.
You use that as a security.
Yes.
Yes, cool, it was all your money that bought the house, but she's on the title.
100%.
Yeah. And that's the property you've chosen to do this. So we have to put something in there. And I'll be saying to you, if you really want this to hold up, we need to acknowledge that financially too.
Yes.
Right? Because there's certain, as much as it is a document that you want it to be,
yes,
there's certain things that you could put in there and I'd be like, the court would walk all over this in 2 seconds if someone applied to have this rendered invalid. Right? So I'll be telling you, usually you need to acknowledge these pitfalls in your document, right? Or in your agreement. So what we've done in that one, or what I ended up having to do is I ended up having to say, because the business is going to grow. This business is big. So how do you acknowledge or how do you compensate for a business that's going to continue to grow? How do you calculate that?
It's hard.
You can't foresee it in a document.
No.
So what we then said was, okay, let's have money taken out of the business, put aside, and it's supposed to be her money, but you continue to decide how it is invested. Okay. And the investment grows along with the business, and that is the money she gets.
Oh.
So we were quite creative. So you'll find a lot of the times that as family lawyers, we're jacks and jills of all trades. We know a lot about everything. Yep. And that's because our job requires us to know a lot about everything. So we had to be quite creative about how we dealt with that. It was a very fascinating outcome, and it worked. It worked for the parties. It worked. So it can be things like that. So again, it's very specific, but it's very broad.
Yes.
Even it specifically targets the business, but the terms are broad.
The terms are broad. Wow. That is quite interesting. You know, it's we were talking about divorce at the end of that. You know, back to the men issue again. I'm finding that a man has married and they're divorced. They're actually scared to remarry. You know, which is probably why this is why we're having this conversation. Yeah. You know, to say, you know, whatever happened in the first divorce, happened, and would like to think that the law was fair. Might not have been fair to you as you see it, but the law was fair. So I think now knowing this information to say, okay, whatever you came out with,
we can have that discussion. Sit down with your partner. Hey, I've been burnt.
Yes.
Once burnt, twice shy.
Yes.
I've been burnt. This time around, I'm going to go about things smarter. So what I've come with is this. I'm not saying I won't pour into our relationship. Yes, of course I'm going to pour into our relationship. Yes. But whatever we come and do together, that's fair.
Like, let's say you're back again.
And I've had repeats. It happens. Both happen in the learning family. It happens.
Yeah, but you ought to have learned something from that experience.
Yeah. But even on that topic, okay, so you're scared to marry, but then you move in with each other. What have you done? Nothing. Same thing, because the de facto and a marriage are treated exactly the same way.
Right. Maybe we should just live separately.
So, well, but even if you live separately, what are the social aspects of your relationship? So do you see what I
mean? No. Do that still apply?
I had a very interesting case once upon a time where one man was saying we were not in a relationship. The woman was saying we were. She had a condition where she couldn't live with other people. And he would go over quite a bit. The nature of the relationship he was saying they had was purely business. Not necessarily personal. And She wanted 400,000 from him. And despite not ever having lived together, despite not ever having had shared leases or anything of that sort, we got our money.
Oh my goodness.
We got our money.
I mean, I guess there was enough there to really prove there was a relationship. So what did she do though in that relationship that really warranted that, you know?
It was the social aspects of the relationship.
Right.
But also when we talk social aspects of the relationship, mind you, we're not just talking people, we're also talking government agencies and the like. So she used to receive social benefits from Centrelink and the like, and she, even though she, we will never know the truth. We'll never know whether she had misunderstood the nature of their relationship or whether she, because sometimes we get it wrong. But she was telling Centrelink she was in a relationship.
Gotcha. Well, it's interesting one, really.
And that was it. On the adverse, I've had one as well where they were in a relationship and all the social ties of the relationship were quite prominent.
Sure.
But one of them still continued to claim Centrelink as a single person, which then created a very technical problem for that person, because then the next question was, okay, so if we're saying there's a de facto relationship and we want 50% of the property, was there or was there not a relationship? Because if we're saying there was a relationship, that means you lied to Centrelink.
So either way,
that's going to have criminal consequences of the same kind as well. So
in that case, you'd opt to just leave the guy alone, isn't it?
Isn't it? Yeah. There's a lot to consider. So all I can say is it's a living document.
Yep.
We can protect your assets and liabilities, but how intact this document stays or how valid it stays is really in your power.
Sure.
And would be important to then continue to revise that document.
Right.
And revising doesn't always mean that things need to change.
Correct.
Sometimes revising means just going to see your lawyer to say, hey, this is where we are at now.
Yeah.
Is this thing still tight?
Yes.
Okay. Because I suppose if you've entered into it once before, you can still enter it multiple times over the course.
I suppose revision is easier than actually starting it.
Yes. Revision is easier, but also sometimes maybe things have changed and maybe I want a little bit more too. So that would be all those conversations that are had along the way.
Wow. I love this topic anyway. Yeah. So thank you so much for agreeing to do this, Caroline, because I feel that in our community, like I said, there's so many misconceptions. All the law favors women. Men are really not considered, and just even the conversation. It sounds like taboo to talk about finances in a relationship, but it's like oh, you're being materialistic. No, we're actually being realistic.
In actual fact, you know what? I would say it's not materialistic. It actually serves both parties.
Absolutely. This is the thing.
Because we're discussing what happens to us if we don't work.
Exactly.
Whereas leaving it to the court is an ugly option.
Yes.
It doesn't. I say it's an ugly option, but it's a difficult and expensive process. More difficult and expensive than drafting this document.
You'd rather not go down that road.
You'd rather not. Yes. And just whilst we're on that topic as well, speaking of our community, mind you, these documents can also cover your properties back home. Okay, so just because it's Australian law doesn't mean that your properties. In fact, we cover everything. So it's all included in there. So
that's good.
Those are the important conversations to have. They're important, very, very important conversations to have.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, you're protecting yourself, you're protecting your children.
Yes. Yes.
Mind you, there's just a lot.
Yeah, and for me, I think really, if someone doesn't want to talk about it, it's a red flag. Doesn't get any redder than that. Because if I went hard, and if I've got something that I've worked for, I want to have that conversation. So it's not. I feel that it's maybe those people who really don't have anything maybe tangible, maybe who don't want to have that conversation.
But even if you didn't, we don't know what the
future holds. You said that.
So you can protect a future you don't see yet.
You might win lotto today. When you had zero with
that I have very interesting stories about people winning lotto. But yeah, for sure.
Yeah, you might do,
Or inheritances.
Inheritances. Yeah.
Especially for those of us over here, you've got your properties, you've got all of that.
Yes.
Inheritances.
Inheritances.
You leave it without a document or any testament.
Any.
Which is wills.
Yes. We're going to talk about that one again.
But this document could essentially be used in the process to say, actually, she always had the intention to keep this.
Yes.
So by virtue of that alone, maybe this just needs to go to her kids or to his kids.
Yes.
Or whatever it is.
Yes. Yes. Oh wow, that's quite interesting. So thank you so much. Like I said, I really hope, at best, people are actually having the conversation.
Yes. It starts with those conversations. It seems it's not as complicated as people think.
Yeah.
It seems silly to say, but it really is just practical things in a relationship. It's just the reality of a relationship that we as family lawyers deal with. Yes. So, how much do you trust each other? How much do you talk about your finances? How much are you open with each other? Those are the things we do.
Yeah, yeah. And don't look at the way the current relationship, the butterfly mentioned. Oh, I love him, he loves me. That's good. But things change and people change, and you see a different person.
The number of times I have clients who say, I never knew she was capable of this. I just thought I was bringing the money home. I never knew she was capable of this. I never knew he was capable. Because when you separate, that's a side you don't have to see until it happens.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a side you never have to know.
100%. Yeah, like, oh, okay, that's a different person. So, you need to protect yourself.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so no, look, we can go on. I love this topic. So thank you so much, Caroline, for agreeing to do this. So maybe we're going to share your details as well.
Yes.
Put them at the bottom of the screen.
Yeah, for sure. So if anyone is looking for me, I work for Lynn Brown Lawyers.
Right.
We are based in Morley, but we do have an office in Perth. So if people are looking for me, just search Lynn Brown. Yeah, we'll always be the first ones.
What about interstate? Do you have interstate?
No, we don't have interstate.
But jurisdiction.
Jurisdiction.
Yeah.
Yes. We don't have interstate. I do have interstate clients for things that are across the 2 states.
Right.
So if you've got any sort of situation where one person has moved away or that sort of thing, yeah.
Different. Okay, all right. No, thank you so much, Caroline.
Oh, you're welcome.
Lovely having you here.
Yeah, it was great to
we'll have you again for other, like I said, law is broad.
It's very broad.
Yes,
it's very broad.
But, sorry, I know we're about to wrap up. You mentioned that you wanted to do commercial law. That was me when I was in uni. I did a business law as a unit. Because when you're doing a business degree, you have to do all those first business units. And I did business law. I loved commercial law.
Yeah.
Loved it. I saw myself working in the AAAC.
Yes.
And in a way, which is probably why now I love what I do with my business, like customer service and all that. I'm always
because you
customer.
Yes, underlying rules.
Absolutely. And I just have that sense of justice for the customer.
Yes.
Always had that. So I think maybe that's why I was drawn to law,
Yeah.
Might still do it. You never know.
Yes. Yes. Go for it. Let me know.
Then I'll need to revise the document.
Then you need to revise the document.
When we met, I wasn't a lawyer.
Oh, well, now I am.
My value has increased. Thank you, Caroline.
You're welcome. Okay.